Okay, good evening and welcome to this meeting of Henley Town Council's Recreation and Amenities Committee tonight, Tuesday the 6th of April. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please, Town Clerk?
We have apologies from Councillor Paula Isaac. I don't know if the estate manager has received any apologies as
well. No, there are no more. Moving on to agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I see none, so we move on to agenda item 3, public participation. Town Clerk, I don't see any members of the public. I'm assuming nobody has registered to speak. Thank you. We'll move straight on to item 4 then, which is minutes. The first to approve the minutes of the Recreation and Amenities Committee meeting held on the 2nd of March. I noticed my mum's birthday didn't make the cut, but don't worry, she doesn't hold it against you. Were there any other amendments or comments or queries about those minutes? I see none. I so move those minutes. All in favour? Thank you. We now move on to receive and note the minutes of the Putting Green Working Group meeting held on the 4th of March. Are there any comments or queries? We're only noting those. I see none. So we shall move on to item 5, which is the progress report. You'll find this on page 11 of your agendas. I'm just moving to mine now. As usual, I will go down the list. If anyone has any comments, questions, or statements to make, if they could just raise their hand and I will look out to stop for you. First item on progress, Fairmile Chapel. You can see that there's an update there. Are there any comments or questions? None. CCTV at Makins Recreation Ground. This is obviously soon to come off the progress report because it will be completed. Donation of a Slovenian hay rack. You can see hopefully this will also be a completed item soon, and that hopefully it will come off progress as well. Riverbank repairs still ongoing. Provision of toilets at Makins Recreation Ground. There is actually a neighbourhood plan event hopefully happening in July, I believe, and that might be a good opportunity for us to have a consultation. I did speak to Councillor Isaac before the meeting, and she was in favour of this and generally getting more of a point of view. Sorry, my Alexa on my phone thought I was talking to it. And she was generally in favour of getting the opinion of more people in the town. So this was a good way forward. Are there any other comments? Does Councillor Eggleton, I know you felt strongly about the toilets. Do you have any comments on whether we should do that?
Yeah, I would say what Paul has said, that the toilets, it's not just about Gainsborough, it's a public place for people to go to, so therefore it needs the whole town to be involved in the public consultation, not just a few little areas. So I'm in favour of working with the neighbourhood plan and having a town public consultation.
Brilliant. Well, we can give Judith a steer then, and she'll be able to get on with that, because I think she's needed a bit of a steer on where we go now that we're starting to see the end of the lockdowns. Moving on to the Lido working group, which is obviously still on hold. The welcome wall, this is ongoing. It's been ongoing for a long time, but it is due to be sorted out after the signage, which is coming in April, May. So it will go. Councillor Egerton, I did pass on the details to Becky that you sent to me, so we can consider it in more detail, like I say, after we've done the next round of signage in a month or two. Cycling at Mill and Marsh Meadows. You can see the update there, and Mill Meadows canoe hire. And there's an update on licenses, which is an item on the agenda. That is all of the progress report. Are there any comments or queries before we move on? I see none, so we'll move on to item 6, which is the finances for 2020-2021. We need to note the management accounts to February 2021. You'll find those on page 13 and 14. Are there any comments anyone would like to make or any questions? I see none. Hopefully we'll start to see a bit of an increase on those bar charts now the weather's getting better. Although I say that, it was sunny and then it started snowing, so you never know, all in the space of an hour. We'll move on to agenda item 7 then, which is the licenses update. This is just to note, but if you have any questions, obviously it's a good time to ask. You'll find the licenses update on pages 15 and 16. Are there any queries or comments at all? Councillor Crook.
Just say I'm all in favour of that military BFIT because he's obviously knows what he's doing. So it sounds like a good idea, really. So
I noticed actually that he'd invited all councillors to go and see how it works for a session. He was actually inviting the whole town, I think, for a free session. So maybe some of us will take it up on him, or maybe some of you will take him up on the offer, and then you can feed back to the committee on my behalf at least. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, just about the military, be military fit. Is Makins the only area he's going to do it? Is there any chance that he could come down to Mill at all? Or
well, Carl spoke to him. It's just Makins at the moment, isn't it, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we just discussed about Makins.
Okay.
See how it goes. You never know what could happen.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other queries?
Not doing it then, Kelly.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how I wake up that morning. See which side of bed I wake up on. Right, moving on to number 8, No Mow May. This is a report from our conservation warden, Lex Vokes, and I was really pleased to see this on the agenda. Who would like to start? Councillor Crook.
yeah, I had an email from, is it Diana Barnett, about this initiative, and then Becky had explained to me about why it's not possible to do all the areas, isn't it? Because of the grass and everything, and how it makes more. Anyway, but I'm sure Carl will explain it more better for Dia if she's watching. So yeah.
Yeah, Becky did explain that there were certain roads that this could work really well on, but there were other roads that this wouldn't work as well on because of the way that we collect the grass, the way that it's cut. We don't have, it's not automatically collected. It would then be left there. Things collect in it like litter and all sorts. And I'm sure I've not done any better a job of explaining it than Councillor Crook. So it might be for Carl, Carl to explain.
Yeah, so we are just going to be cutting a few areas. Basically, if we leave the whole town too long, it will just take us a lot longer to cut the grass, and then because of the nature of our machines, we just have cut and drop machines. We don't have collection units. We do have one mower that collects, but it'll be far too much for that one mower to collect everything. So we're just going to try it. We're going to trial. We're very keen to work with to do this No Mow May, and yeah, we're just going to do the site stated in the report. Sorry,
Councillor Crook.
Also to say that what Becky said as well, and Carl said, is the fact is if you leave the grass too long and there's dog excrement in it, you can't see it and people tread in it, and that's another health and safety reason why we shouldn't really leave it too long in certain areas.
Oh, we have a recommendation on page 18, 5.1. I'm happy to move this from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Plant. All of those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. And Carl, if you wouldn't mind passing on our thanks to Lex for contributing to the agenda with his report. I thought it was brilliant.
On that point, did we start growing some more banks and verges on some of the residential roads? I can't remember where we were going to.
We do. Opposite Badgemore, Grace Road. Carl would know more. I'll let him answer.
Are they going well?
We're just in the process of those at the moment. So, but yeah, we've added some extras to the list, as Kelly says. Mount View, Badgemore, Cemetery, just creating wildflower areas.
Okay. So we now move on to agenda item 9, which is a report from myself about steps into the river at Marsh Meadows. I haven't got much to add other than I've spoken to a few more stakeholders, river stakeholders, since I wrote this report, who have given more ideas, which obviously I'll pass on to officers of how this could work. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions or comments, Councillor Miller.
Yeah, really, really good report, Kelly. Thank you for that. And I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm absolutely all for this. If we could get the ball rolling and further investigating. It's so popular now, river swimming. And yeah, I think this is great. Really good.
Thank you. I think I need the officer involvement now so that it's a proper process as well, because there's only so much I can do as chair. I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee or on behalf of the council at any point. So I feel that there is some definite involvement from officers needed if we're to go forward. Councillor Plant.
I think, like, as you've written in your report as well, I think the bit down towards the bridge is definitely the best from my perspective. It's where most of the town's open water swimmers would head now. At the moment, they'd park in the car park by the football club and wander over the bridge to get in the little beachy bit just over the walkway as you go towards Shiplake. So I think it's already probably the most accessed spot, and actually having a spot that you can get in turning left, as it were, as in coming back towards Henley, just beyond the little wooden bridge there, I think would be wonderful. It's also quite shallow, and it's rarely used by boaters, just because just beyond that bit it's too shallow to navigate your boat anyway. So most of the river traffic heads to the other side, either to go into the lock or coming back from the lock, as it were, as John will know. So it's kind of apart from the odd canoeist or paddleboarder, I think it's a brilliant spot to use for swimming, as it were. And it also kind of, like you put in your report, keeps it away from the super busy area of the River and Rowing Museum and that sort of stuff, which is cool.
Is that the space we're talking about between the bridge and the what we call the green post?
No, this spot is just before the little wooden footbridge. So you go right to the edge of the Marsh Meadows.
Yeah.
In line with the towpath.
Yeah.
And there's some trees. They hang over, so nobody can moor there. It's that exact spot there where the trees are hanging over at the end of the mooring. Just a bit further on.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Where that tree is, where the fairies live. It's got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the fairies down there.
Or the tree where you can make wishes.
The fairies got COVID. That's the issue.
I think you live with the fairies.
Dave does.
Who?
Okay, brilliant. Well, then I'm going to move with the proposal from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Any one of you? And all of those in favour? Thank you very much. That's carried.
Are we going to have a mass council swimming session just to break in the steps?
As long as everyone's fully clothed, yeah. Keep your clothes on. Okay. And on that note, we move on to agenda item 10, Parks and Open Spaces, to receive the next report, which is on page 25 and goes all the way through to page 34. And this is from Becky and Carl, this report. We do love a policy. Sorry, Councillor Miller.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm looking at the again, another really good report. I'm looking at the new rates for events, for Mill Meadows, Makings and Singers Park. What do you mean when you say a non-operating day?
Thank you, because I asked Becky the exact same question.
Sometimes with charity runs, they'll have a setup day
Ah,
and a breakdown day.
Okay, I've got you.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I thought, was that like a weekday, or I didn't know if that was the difference. So I
Yeah.
actually asked Becky because I thought I'd be the only one to ask the question. So I asked her before the meeting. Are there any other questions or comments on the report? Sorry, Councillor Arlett, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the Parks and Open Spaces use policy. Item 4.2.4. I think we've all seen dog owners when they bring their dogs along the footpath and maybe other areas into Mill Meadows, and then the dogs just go wherever they wish to go and do their business. And I think we've all seen it down there. I would like to see dogs kept on a lead until they get into Marsh Meadow. Mainly, there's so many kids playing around on the Mill Meadows, and there's nothing worse when they start rolling into dogs' poo, dare I say. And I think all the dogs should be kept on a lead until they get into into Marsh Meadows, and I would like that added. And the other piece, the last piece on 4.2.4, could lead to a fine or a prosecution. I'd like to know how we're going to implement that. So I propose that we add in there that dogs are kept on a lead in Mill Meadows. If anybody would like to second that.
Councillor Crook seconding that. Were you wanting to speak? It's seconded. So if I take you in order of wanting to speak, Councillor Crook, do you want to, as you seconded, speak
Yes.
first?
what Ken said, it is quite a good idea. I know some dog owners won't be very happy and they'll just blatantly ignore it, but there are a lot of dog owners, myself included, that have what we call anxious dogs, and they don't like other people with dogs that are running off loose off the lead, bounding up to their dog, because there could be some sort of incident like there was today reported on Community Matters. People who have what we call dogs that are not anxious don't understand what it's like to have a dog that has anxiety, and it's very difficult to separate the dogs if the anxious dog owner has a dog running loose and the owner says, oh, my dog's fine, it doesn't matter. They're not thinking about what the implications could be if it comes up to an anxious dog. So what Ken said is very good. I would encourage people to keep their dogs on a lead in Mill Meadows and just be a bit more thoughtful for other dog owners that have anxious dogs as well.
Okay, Councillor Eggleton.
Yeah, I agree with what Ken said as well. Especially around by the obelisk, and when the parks, and I've been down there planting out, that is quite a lot of dog poo in and around that area, and especially around the flower beds which have just been dug up by dogs when we just planted it all out. So yeah, it would be good if we could have it up there. I don't know how you have been meaning putting more signs up and all that sort of stuff, but unfortunately that's what you'll have to do if you want to get that there. But I totally in favour of that.
Councillor Miller, was that your hand up as well?
It kind of, yeah, although I do, I'm a dog owner and I go down there a lot every day, and Gillett's Field, but it's going to be really difficult to police this. I don't know how we're going to do it, apart, without more signage. It sounds really good, but I don't think many people are going to take much notice of it, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I do agree with Ken. As much as I do like to let my dog off Mill Meadows, but yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult one, and I don't know how we're going to police that one. But
Councillor Plant.
Going to go in line with Councillor Miller. Yeah, I can agree with the sentiment, but it's like when we discuss speeding things or traffic signs. It's like unless it's enforceable, it's tantamount to useless, as it were. And I fear on this one we'll be putting up yet more signs to enforce a behaviour that there is no way of enforcing, as it were. I just think having one area where obviously you can let them run freely, people are going to do what they do, just walk along and not really know the difference. And I think it'll become a burden on either our already busy park staff or other members of the team to try and enforce, as it were. I think it'll be too difficult to even warrant starting.
So I agree about the enforcement, because every time we do decide something, we do have to think of how it will be enforced when we make these decisions. But I do really agree with this, because I'm not a dog owner. I do walk a dog down there very regularly. We don't that often take the dog off the lead in Mill Meadows, because there are other little dogs off the lead that it's just problematic. But we do naturally tend to wait to Marsh Meadows, and I think there are a few people like that. So for some people it won't bother them, but for others it will be a real sore point, and they just won't follow it. And we've had a real problem for years around by the rides, where people sit at the cafe, let their dogs run free in Mill Meadows, and we get lots of mess left behind on the rides. And the Joneses, who operate the rides, have been very kind in helping to collect that mess and deal with it as much as they can, which is very kind of them. But they shouldn't have to either, just like our park staff shouldn't. So I completely agree with the idea behind it. I'm worried about the enforcement side of it. And whether people will listen, but I'm not against signage or anything like that. I just wonder how we'll catch people or stop people or whatever it might be. Councillor Eggleton.
I think the only way we can move forward on this, I know there's no enforcement, but if you, without going overkill with all the signs and stuff, just putting a sign down at one end and a sign at the other end, and just start with that for now and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And that's all, just 1-2 signs either end, and just get the papers to put it in the papers, in the newspapers. And hopefully, if people respect the parks, they will take it on board and do that.
Okay, well, Councillor Plant.
I think, it just becomes another sign. It'll be like a comedy sketch where it's like, here's another sign about another sign type thing. It starts to become farcical, I think. Just it's another point on that list of things that you can or cannot do. I think without an actual way of enforcing it or policing it, a sign is a complete waste.
Town Clerk, did you have something to add?
Thank you. It is slightly outside the scope of the policy. I know there is the mention in there, but as Councillors Plant and Miller have alluded to, it is a very big topic, and I know from experience that it can be a very emotive and very difficult subject. One of the problems with signs is that it is also used by other users of the park to then self-enforce as well. So it can cause then arguments between different users as well, as one user is then telling another one, look, you have to keep the dog in the lead. I would say that that enforcement is also very difficult to do. It may be that it is the right thing to do. It may be that it's not, but I would say that it would probably need a bit more investigation before it's at the stage where the committee can probably make a decision on it. But it's a very good point that's been raised.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Is there anything anyone else would like to add? Would you perhaps, Mr. Mayor, consider amending your proposal for it to come back to the next RNA meeting for real consideration?
Yeah, I'll be happy with that. I was going to sum up anyway, but I'm happy to do that if you wish to bring it back. The only thing I would say under 4.2.4 again is that it does end with, on that item, could lead to a fine or prosecution. So somebody must be going to catch somebody doing that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have could lead to a fine or prosecution in that item. So one would say, if you're going to do that, you could obviously do it for dog fouling. But I probably know a person that would be very good at that, of catching people. And I think we all know who he is, but he would be an expert at it.
Yeah, put a ticket on him.
Anyway, yeah, I'm quite happy for that to come back, Chairman.
Thank you. All of those in favour of it coming back to
Can I just say one thing quickly, Kelly?
well, Mr. Mayor has summed up, but I think
Oh,
as
okay. Yeah, no
meeting,
problem.
we can allow it. We're relaxed here at RNA.
All right. No, it's just I'm not against dogs, but obviously if anybody's watching this and if the papers pick up on it, if we don't have any signs, fair enough. That's not the major thing. Is people just respecting the parks and just respecting each other that are in the area, and if they can all work together, we might not need any signs or any fines or anything like that in the future. It's just that we all need to work together to make the park safe and clean and tidy. That's it, really.
You can have a sign.
We can dream.
Yeah, have a sign just saying "Be a good human, engage common sense." But
Yeah, just make people aware.
If only. So we have a recommendation which is on page 28. It's 5.1. Would anyone like to propose that? Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Planty seconding. Brilliant. All of those in favour of going with the recommendation 5.1. Thank you very much. And obviously we'll bring back Mr. Mayor's points to the next meeting. We'll now move on to agenda item 11, which is the tree management policy. And this is another report from Becky and Carl. Are there any questions, queries, proposals? I see none. I mean, this seems really straightforward to me. We've been doing a lot of work with trees. We've voted through the software. We're managing our trees better than we ever have. I think that's a really fair comment to make. So I'm happy to move this from the chair if I have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Miller. All of those in favour? Thank you very much. That is passed. Right, agenda item 12 is the cemetery warden, and you'll find this on pages 43 to 45 of your agendas, right at the back. And this report has been written by Sheridan, our town clerk, and Carl. And it's pretty self-explanatory. But are there any questions or queries that anyone has? Councillor Lambert.
If I understand 3.3 correctly, this appears to be cost neutral. We're already paying approximately 6k per year. But we do have a very large deficit. Is there no way that we can absorb this work in the existing team without hiring anybody new and actually use this as a chance to save 6k? If it absolutely can't be done, fair enough, but have we considered doing that?
All options are considered when it comes to saving money, especially when Sheridan's involved, but I'll let him speak.
Please.
Thank you. The parks manager will have a better idea of the capacity within his team. What I would say is they've already absorbed some of the work this year because Community Payback haven't been able to attend as regularly. They have been doing a lot more of the grass cutting down at the cemetery. This would give quite a lot of added value to the council. We know that the cemetery is sometimes seen as the kind of like poor relation of a lot of our areas, and it's an area that I think a lot of us would agree needs some work to bring it up to standards. And with the new columbarium coming online as well, it would give a bit of extra resource to manage that as well, so that we wouldn't have additional cleaning costs, for example, that could be absorbed within this role, and also working with undertakers, funeral directors, the gravedigger, and so on and so forth. We do have regular issues down there with burials, and I think we all feel that it's really important that burials go smoothly, and this would be a really important way of ensuring we can do that. We've got a couple of tricky areas down there where spacing of graves is really crucial, and the ground there is very difficult, and so we have lost quite a few spaces in the past there because the ground hasn't been suitable, or the graves haven't been correctly spaced. By having this person, it also means that we can maximise the use of that area, which in the long term will mean obviously additional revenue to the council for the upkeep of the cemetery.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have absolute faith in our parks team. If they need an extra part-time resource, so be it. Thank you.
Councillor Plant.
It may not be directly relevant to this bit, but following on from what Sheridan said, does the town council qualify for any of like the apprenticeship training schemes where the government then pays a percentage of the training costs for stuff like park staff and bits like that?
Town clerk.
There is the special scheme which was started as a result of the pandemic, which unfortunately we don't qualify for because we don't have enough staff. You have to be quite a big employer to qualify for that. There is the usual apprenticeship scheme, which I have made use of before in a previous role. I don't know if Henley has previously at all. The parks manager or estate manager may know a little better than that. That is always a possibility. Maybe not for this role because they would we would expect them to be a bit more autonomous working down there.
Yeah.
But it's certainly something that we should consider for the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, just following Glenn's point, it might help absorb some other costs of training related, because I think they cover up to 95% of training courses and bits like that. So that could be something worth looking into to bring down some costs.
I know the parks manager and the assistant parks manager have looked into similar options before, not quite the government scheme, but working with local charities and young people in particular. So it's definitely an avenue that the parks management have been really open to in the past. Are there any other queries or comments about this recommendation 5.1 on page 45?
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Yeah, I can't get up any farther. The figure for this, the way I'm reading this, that this member of staff, if we do employ, it seems to me it'd probably be working more in the summertime than in the wintertime. Would that be correct?
Well, people, I suppose they pass on at any time of year, but I suppose, yeah, there's a lot of summer work involved that doesn't relate to death as well. Town clerk.
Yes, thank you. There is more work naturally in the summer, how I understand it. Again, the parks manager would have more details. They would, their hours would probably be seasonal, with more of them during the summertime and fewer of them during the winter.
Are there any other questions? I see none. Would anyone like to make the proposal? Okay, I'm happy to move it from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lambert. All of those in favour of the recommendation 5.1 on page 45. Thank you, that is carried. Right, before we move on to our final item, we have to do the exclusion of the press and the public and say goodbye to all of those that may be watching us on YouTube for possibly the last time, well, possibly not the last time watching us on YouTube, but certainly has the possibility of being our last online meeting. So we'll move to exclude the public and press from the remainder of the meeting in accordance with the Public Bodies Admissions Meetings Act 1960, as matters which will be discussed are considered to be confidential. All of those in favour?